that they've been taken advantage of by the developers of this project, and we will be meeting again next Monday night to discuss their concerns and issues further. Now, back in late July 2019, it was reported in the local paper, Lockley Investments planned to establish a residential village on an Allens Road lifestyle block, with the only access to this being through Primrose Place, despite there being present access from Allens Road, and that was the site's physical address. Now, on the 1st of August last year, I wrote to the council on behalf of 10 neighbours at that time, requesting that a condition of the resource consent for the work should be that all contractors, builders, etc. only use the Allens Road access until the work was completed, with the Primrose Place access open virtually as the last step in the process. In response to this letter, I was advised verbally by a council employee that basically the council planners agreed with us, and as interested parties, we would be kept fully informed of the lodging of the resource consents, applications, and of anything pertaining to the proposed new village. This communication never happened, and despite requests for updates on the situation regarding the resource consent applications, I was basically fobbed off, and until we learned in early March this year from a neighbour, the resource consent applications had been lodged on the 20th of December last year and granted on the 18th of February this year. We found that these resource consent applications had been granted on a non-notified basis, which was very disappointing to us, as we subsequently learned after work had started within the complex that very significant ground level changes were to take place, which could cause major flooding on our adjacent sections, similar to or worse than those experienced during the 3-day flooding event. New village would be initially only be allowed to residents. But of course there was no mention at all of all of the other parties who would service the complex and all who would create significant additional traffic volumes through our cul-de-sac, Charlesworth Drive, Hanneran Street, where there is all-day parking by hospital staff, Belt Road, and the dangerous intersections of Middle Road and Oak Grove and Elizabeth Street. We simply could not understand why Allens Road was to be closed for residents' usage, when many of the facilities that they would be using on a much more regular basis, such as the Three Rivers Medical Centre, postal and mail facilities at the Allenton Pharmacy, the mini supermarket, dairy, liquor store, eateries, St David's Church, were also much more conveniently accessed from Allens Road. We felt that we in Primrose Place would be subjected to greatly increased traffic through our cul-de-sac vehicles, but allowance be made for pedestrians, runners, cyclists and mobile scooters to use a limited size access way. We thought that the proposals, which include raising of ground levels, issues with flooding, pile driving for retaining walls, privacy and the traffic problems associated with the only access, could in fact have had a very significant adverse effect on us, the neighbours to the proposal. It was our view that these issues could not, under any circumstances, be deemed to be less than minor, hence our concern about the non-notification of the resource consents. Now, on the 1st of June this year, I wrote to the Mayor and CEO expressing the concerns of residents and asked that Council conduct urgent meetings between all the parties involved. I must say that in short order after this letter, I was contacted by Ian Hyde of Council and Chris Hopper of Davis Ogilvie, who met with myself and Paul Gooby to discuss the residents' concerns, and together we reviewed the plans of the proposed village. From this point on, I can say that these two gentlemen appeared to assist us greatly. They listened to our concerns, they provided plans, they amended plans along with the associates, they kept us completely in the loop to changes being made, and by the time we'd met with all the parties involved again on the 3rd of July, we felt that many of our concerns, but not all, had been alleviated. Since that date, more changes within the complex have taken place, until we've come into today's meeting to discuss the Primrose Place access resource consent. Now, I'd like to acknowledge the work of both Ian and Chris and their backup staff, to publicly thank them for their cooperation and problem-solving efforts to get the best result possible for all of the parties involved. We acknowledge the very good report from Council prepared by Tania Paddock and Paul Brake for this meeting. From this report, we note that under option 2, which is not to dedicate the local purpose reserve as a road, the residents have the right to agree and support this option which if passed by council would give the village only the one access from Allens Road. We felt that this was not an option for us, although it did have some attraction. We decided before we saw the latest plan received last evening to support option 1 to allow access through Primrose Place for the following reasons. 1, there should be only minimal traffic volumes through Primrose Place. 2, the access will give village residents ready access to formed footpaths for pedestrians, runners, cyclists and mobility scooters, which is not available at present from Allens Road. And there's currently no footpath on that section of Allens Road adjacent to the village. 3, it will give quicker access to village management in the event of a medical emergency. 4, it will give alternative access from the village in the event of a major disaster, incident, fire, earthquake, explosion and so on, if there's a real need to evacuate residents. They had an alternative. As most of the residents will be elderly, we think we must consider their needs and not put up unnecessary obstacles for them. Then we received the latest site plan for the access last evening from the engineers. Suddenly, we're confronted with a plan for the access road to be 6 metres wide, the same width as the access road to Allens Road, which was supposed to be the primary access. Primrose was supposed to be the secondary access, which it no longer is, and can't by any stretch of the imagination be secondary, considered it was labelled in the plan Road 1, if you look at your plans. We agree with the Council's roading engineer's advice in the report that the access road from Primrose should be 4 metres in width. We see no reason why it should be 6 metres if it is to be a secondary access. Now, in response to my email of the 26th of June pertaining to neighbours' concern, Chris Hopper responded, and I quote, "Access from Primrose Place will not be to the standard of a normal road, and for all intents look to be a residential entranceway. A residential entranceway would not normally be 6 metres in width, but this confirmed for us that the developers never really wanted to deviate from their agenda, which was to have full road access from Primrose for any vehicles, hence being named Road 1. We also told this week that the road would be as much as possible be maintained at present ground levels. Now we have a sloping road from the Primrose turning area up to the property boundary. We were told the access would and could only be used by residents. How on earth could that policy be policed when the plan of the village will be advertised at sale time, showing equal access to sites from Primrose and Allens, which members of the public will take to being equal in all respects? One scary sign on the entrance stating speed now 30 k's, private road, no exits, residents only. I think the only thing that will register for most people when they get to the Primrose entrance would be the reduced speed sign from 40 to 30. No exit means we can't come back out this way. But there is, according to the plan we've got in our hands, an exit to Allens Road. And residents only. That won't apply to us. Once again, we are told what we wanted to hear, and after the job was completed, we would not be able then to complain. It would be a done deal. The only way to ensure that residents only condition would or could be observed would be to have the gate shut 24/7 with only the residents with vehicles being issued with swipe cards or remote gate openers. There's no detail in the plan about the gate, but we would hope that it was run on a level base and not rattled across the proposed paving stones when opening and shutting. Our residents could live with the access being 4 metres wide, which would give a stronger indication to the general public that Primrose was a secondary access way. The present plan certainly does not do this, but will give us in Primrose a convenient shortcut from Primrose to Allens. We agree with all of the conditions and clauses in paragraph 22 of the council document. We suggest also that no exit signs be placed as well on the village side of the access to Primrose Place to prevent visitors to the village using it as an exit. A no exit sign could also be placed under the Primrose Place sign at the Charlesworth Drive end. The access site in Primrose Place is not visible from Charlesworth Drive due to the bend in the road, but we believe that no other signs indicating the presence of the village should be erected in Charlesworth Drive. We agree with all of the terms in Annexure Schedule 1, with the exception of the 3.1.b being now the reduction of the maximum width from 6 metres to 4 metres. Councillors, we ask for your support to reduce the access from 6 metres to 4 metres, or otherwise please vote for option 2. Our peaceful life is in your hands. And finally, a quote that I had from Oscar Ice, which I thought was apt for this situation. Life is always good if those living around you are happy with what's going on. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr Kingsbury. That's well done. It's great. Councillors, questions, and I have one questions or clarifications of Mr Kingsbury and Councillor Falloon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Mr Kingsbury, for a well put together submission, both written and oral. When I go through it, I can see your reasons on the bottom of page 2, top of page 3, for once you've seen the latest plan last evening, to allow access through Primrose Place for the following reasons. It seems to me that the only objection you now have is the 4 metre or 6 metre road width. Is that correct?
Well, that's the main reason, because it at the moment both entrances being 6 metres, they're exactly the same. And what will the general public think? Which is the main entrance? And when the plan has road 1 on it, that tells me that's number 1 entrance.
Supplementary, Councillor.
Supplementary. At the time you bought the sections in Primrose Place, were you aware of the road reserve at the end of the street, and that at some stage in the future it could be used for road access?
Yeah, we were, because we only bought 5 years ago. So I was quite aware of the fact that it could be used for access. But in the first instance, and we've got copies, the first people that bought in that area, there was on the plan, the selling plan, the area that the council owned was not indicated on that plan at all. Now, we've got copies of that plan, and Mr McLaren here could tell you he was one of the first in that Primrose Place. There was nothing on the plan when he bought that property, or bought the land, to tell him there was access going to be granted.
Just have one question, Hamish. It might be you to direct one of your staff members. Mr Kingsbury suggests that no exit signs be placed on the village side of Primrose Place. It wouldn't be a no exit, so can that happen or can it not? Because it wouldn't be a no exit, it would just be a deterrent.
Yes, can you answer that?
I'd have to refer that to Brian Firth, the roading manager. Brian?
There's a speaker there.
Brian, if you could come up to the table and use the speaker, please.
If it's on the private property, being no exit just says that you can't actually exit from there. If there's an instruction to the residents that they're allowed to go out that particular way, I suppose that would cover the situation that it's there for general public, not for the residents as such, but no exit basically means exactly that.
So you can't put a no exit sign where Mr Kingsbury has suggested?
If it's on private property, you can do what you like in that sense. If you want to put a private sign up saying no exit, that's your prerogative. It has nothing to do with the legal situation. It's within a private property.
Ms Donaldson?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. This might be something that a bit further on in the meeting you might want to clarify with Mr Briggs or Mr Hopper, because the rationale for wanting that access there is so that residents of the new development can access the existing Lockley facility. They may have a partner that's in the hospital that they're visiting. They may want to go to the existing Lockley swimming pool or gym facility. So that might be something that would be best asked of the developer when it's his turn.
Thank you. Councillor Alderson.
Thank you, Mr Kingsbury, for your report. Just my question follows on from Councillor Falloon. So you say those earlier people, that the residents that bought their sections, there was nothing noting the possibility of a road there. So would they just assume that that was another section?
Yeah, it shows on that plan that the section number 17 goes right across that area.
Thank you.
Any further questions of Mr Kingsbury?
If I could just clarify the no exit sign we're talking about is at Charlesworth.
Yep.
On that corner.
Yep.
There's a sign there already which says Charlesworth,
Yep,
or which says Primrose Place. All we're suggesting is underneath that could be a no exit.
Right, understand
for a general
exactly what you mean. Yep. Councillor Brown?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kingsbury. Just a question. You talk about a plan where it states street number 1. I don't have anything like that on my computer here. So what you're using a plan I don't have. You mentioned that there is a street or road number 1.
Yes.
Which one is that? Is it on the Primrose side?
On the new plan, just inside the entrance, road number 1 is written beside the entranceway. If you have a copy of that plan.
Okay, I don't have a copy.
We do have a copy. It's
Okay, well, I did not see that. Thank you. Okay. I've been with council for a long time. Okay. Yep, I see it. That makes sense. Okay.
yeah, Errol. You're coming up next, I think. Yeah, we'll wait till then. Thanks. Yeah, Councillor Brown, your question answered or still?
Yes, it is. No, I was we were
Push your
confused, but
button
thank you for that.
Thank
So
you.
now I can make.
You push it.
I will.
Councillor Cameron.
I've just got a question for the council really. When was that roading reserve purchased, or when did it go into the plans? If it wasn't in the plans when earlier residents came in?
Who can answer that? Ian, is it?
Sorry, can't answer that off the top of our head. We'd have to do some digging. It's certainly not recent. It's been there for quite a long time.
Post-purchasing of the original sections though, essentially. Or no, it was just a...
If I could just answer that, the reserve was on the title that I've got, and so I presume it must have happened pretty shortly after the selling was taking place.
Mr.
There was a selling document, it said, that didn't show the reserve.
Do you have a copy of that
We have a copy of that, yeah.
with you or not?
No, I haven't got it with me, but I can get you one.
Right. Not sure it's necessary or not, but you're fine. Any further questions of Mr. Kingsbury? If not, thank you, Mr. Kingsbury, for
Thank you
presenting
very
that.
much.
If you'd like to take a seat at
Thank
the
you.
back and listen in, and we'll have Mr. Briggs and Mr. Hopper come up, please. And I think Mr. Hopper, you might be able to answer some of those questions that did come up.
Good afternoon, councillors. My name is Chris Hopper. I'm a licensed cadastral and registered professional surveyor with Davis Ogilvy in Christchurch. We've been working with Lees Briggs on this development for a couple of years now. So if I could just answer a couple of those questions that were raised on the vesting of the road is one of them. The road was vested in council as part of that subdivision, which was, I think, is dated 2014. So obviously when the residents entered into a purchase agreement, they may have very well seen a plan that showed the lots going past what is now the reserve. But as you know, and we know that plans do change over time, so that when the subdivision went to council for its section 2 to 3 and 2 to 4, so that's when council signed off on the subdivision consent, and we're happy that the conditions of the subdivision consent were completed. That road was shown as an area to vest in council's local purpose reserve, so that when the residents then purchased the property, and part of their due diligence would have been a copy of that title would have been attached to that document, so they would have seen when they were purchasing it that that land was to vest in council as a local purpose reserve. Just to go back to Errol's comment regarding the road names. The road names shown on our plan are generic. In a lot of subdivisions we have multiple roads, so we might have a road 1, road 2, road 3. The citing of the label of road 1 is by no means indicating that the road access of Primrose Road is the main point of access. We've been in discussion with the neighbourhood group, and we've taken on board a lot of their comments, and we've incorporated a lot of their comments into altering the design of this subdivision. So this subdivision has gone through many iterations, and the current one that we managed to get to council last night is the latest one. We've agreed that Allens Road will be the main access point for the subdivision. The development. The development will be advertised as having an address off Allens Road. The whole idea of the Primrose access point is to give residents access to the existing Lockley Village to the east. Now, we initially showed the road into the development of Primrose Road as a 6 metre wide entranceway. Council, as part of their building consent conditions, required the road to be at the same dimensions as the Primrose Place. When we questioned council engineers about what that really meant, they wanted the road to be a full road width, i.e. the size of Primrose Place as it now. So we did an iteration showing that road to that size. Subsequent conversations with the neighbours group, we've reduced that road down to 6 metres of what you see now. We understand there's some discussion about moving that road to 4 metres, 4 metre wide formation, which is consistent with council's district plan and transportation chapter. In discussions with Mr. Briggs, he's more than happy to reduce that 6 metre width road down to 4 metres. We are just mindful that we do want to retain access from the development to the existing village, as mentioned, or as per those items mentioned today. So I don't know if Lee's have got anything to add.
Good afternoon, councillors. My name's Les Briggs. I'm representing Lockley Investments. Just a bit of history. 11 years ago, Lockley purchased about 15 hectares of land off Beta Mallee. This land was surveyed into 138 sections. But I'd always thought that Ashburton needed a retirement village, and we were handicapped because there weren't very many good-sized blocks of land around. So we were quite happy to get that land at that time. When we had Lockley area resurveyed, and then we provided Ashburton with 67 sections, all of which have been built on, 111 retirement houses, 19 apartments, and an 80-bed hospital. This development is now complete. In the interim, pardon me, in the interim we purchased the Allens Road block with a view to extending the retirement village by 39 units and a leisure centre. At the time of resurveying, the council advised us that they required, I beg your pardon, at the time of the original surveying, the council advised us that they required a section to be left at the end of Primrose Place as a reserve for future development. In recent times, Lockley applied for consent to develop Allens Road with the entrance off Primrose Place. This consent was granted, subject to the council changing the reserve section to a road. We are now asking council to make that change. Since starting the earthworks, we've had complaints from neighbours in regard to the use of Primrose Place as an entrance. We've had several meetings with council and neighbours and have agreed to change the main entrance to Allens Road and to have a narrow, restricted entrance off Primrose Place. Now, if you care to look at the statistics, you'll see that the traffic out of the retirement village is very, very low. And if we have the main entrance off Allens Road, the amount of traffic on the Primrose Place Road will be very, very light, to say the least. But the entrance from Primrose Place is very essential, as it provides a direct route from the Lockley village to the new development. There are some times when urgent care is required and time is vital. It takes several minutes to drive around the block to Allens Road, with always the possibility of a hold-up with the traffic on Racecourse Road. It is quite a responsibility to look after people in the older bracket. It is not economically viable to run a 39 retirement village houses by themselves. They need to be linked to Lockley. The current economic climate is not conducive to development, but Lockley is prepared to carry out the development, which will provide employment for a significant number of Ashburton people and provide another housing area for retirement people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Briggs. And councillors, any questions of our presenters? Councillor Bryan.
Yes, I do. If I hear this correct, the problem is solved. Is that correct? The developers are quite happy to go to a 4-meter wide road from
Yes, we are.
Primrose, and I understand the people down the back who are living there would be quite happy with that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions of the submitters? If not, I'll thank you both. You can take a seat at the back of the room and we'll now debate the recommendation. We'll decide which recommendation we're going to go with and make a decision. So, councillors, we have a recommendation in front of you. There's option 1 or there's option 2. And if you go with option 1, we need a number 3, which will be 4 metres or 6 metres. So if someone would like to move, Councillor Mackay.
I'll move subject to the wording of C, which will be 4 metres. That's 4 metres. Can we come up with some wordings for that?
What, number 3?
Number 3, yeah.
Don't include it in number 2, include it in make number 3.
Yeah, the limit of the width.
And the width of the road will be?
4 metres.
4 metres. Yeah,
On Primrose Place, yep.
a maximum of 4 metres.
Yep. Hang on.
Is that legal width, formation width? Are we talking curb face to curb face, including footpaths?
Not sure. You may need to come forward again and just ask that question and speak into the speaker.
Could we also have Mr Firth forward to help us?
Okay, Brian, if you'd like to come forward too and
On the face of it, Mr Mayor, it seems quite easy that we have an agreement. It's just we've got to get the right wording to satisfy all parties.
yeah. Just clarify the 4 metres.
Yeah, so thank you for coming to that conclusion, but we just want to confirm with you, and it's probably something that we can discuss with council engineers at a later date, but just whether the 4 metres is...
Point of order, Mr Chairman, Mr Mayor. We're here to make a decision now. There's no later date. We make the decision today.
Make a decision today.
Or we put the decision off, one or the other.
One or the other.
And you have my motion that has not got a seconder. That we're,
You haven't
that
moved to
we're
getting a
wording
second
now.
yet.
That we're wording now.
Yeah. So the way I understand the 4 metres is the road itself, and you've got your footpaths either side. Could we use the term 4 metre carriageway? If
I'd
it
be happy.
helps.
Yep.
Up to 4 metre carriageway. Mr Firth, that's acceptable. Yep. Nod. Yep.
Thank you.
Can we check with the submitter?
Which submitter?
Correct.
4 metres is happy there. Councillor anything further to add, Councillor Mackay? You've moved
Yep.
the motion, which is number 3 at 4 metres, up to 4 metres carriageway. Seconder, and I have Councillor Cameron. Seconded. To speak to that?
Can I speak now?
You can speak now, yep.
Just with regards to the motion, which I support, there is also some caveats around that with signage. Are we including the signage in this motion, or are we going to discuss it separately?
It's not part of this.
Okay, sure,
It's not part
sure.
of this.
Thanks.
No other question, debate? No. Right or reply, councillor Mackay?
In my many years at a council table and as a commissioner, you never go against agreed decisions, Mr Mayor. I'll let council vote accordingly.
Thank you, Mr Mackay. Councillor Mackay, I'll put the motion. I'm in favour. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Right, next item of business. No. Item number 5, setting of rates 2021. And Rachel, Paul, and this is more a technical matter. 2 recommendations there, one to revoke, one to, so who would like to speak? Paul?
Yep. Thank you, Mr Mayor. You'll remember at the last meeting when we set the rates, there was a last minute adjustment to include the Mount Hutt Hall rate, which we knew how much was the rate in the dollar. But at that time, we didn't have clearly what the effect of that was on the uniform annual general charge and the general rate. Because we were already at the cap, we had to adjust the UAGC and general rate because that Mount Hutt Hall rate is a UAC. So we have gone away and done that, but at the time when you adopted the rates resolution, the actual figures for the UAGC and the general rate were not correct because they hadn't been adjusted because we didn't know what they were. So the safest way to deal with this is to revoke the last resolution. And put this one through, and the only difference between this one and the last one really effectively is the UAGC and general rate, UAGC total amount and the general rate in the dollar, and that will fix perhaps the lack of clarity when we adopted the rates resolution last time.
Okay, Claire, has any questions for Rachel or Paul? If not, we'll, first recommendation there, councillor McMillan, you want to move?
Thank you, I'll move that.
Seconder,
I'm happy to second it.
councillor Rawlinson. Any further discussion? I'll put the motion, I'm in favour, all in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Next recommendation. Councillor McMillan,
I'll move that, thank you.
seconder. I had councillor Lovett.
I'll second that.
Yep. Any further discussion? Debate, I'll put the motion, I'm in favour, all in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried, thank you. That takes us to the end of the open part of the meeting, thank you very much. Members of the public, media, we will just wait for you to leave and we've got a matter to discuss. The door shut.
I'll move that we go into committee.
Moved we go into committee, seconded myself, all in favour, please say aye. Carried, we're in committee, thank you.